literally parts of buildings flying by.
I think we did a fantastic job in Puerto Rico. We're still helping Puerto Rico.
No, I don't think we're being treated as Americans. I don't think.
On the 20th of September 2017, Hurricane Maria hit the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. It brought widespread devastation and destroyed much of the island's infrastructure. Initially, it was reported that despite the scale of destruction, only 16 people had been killed, and the US President Donald Trump hailed the relief effort as a victory. But after a year, the official number of dead was confirmed as nearly 3,000, making Maria the worst natural disaster on US soil in the last century. Many Puerto Ricans are still without homes, living either on the mainland United States or under plastic tarps. Donald Trump says he doesn't believe the casualty figures, and he says Puerto Ricans should be grateful. We've come to Puerto Rico to talk to some of the people who are at the center of the reconstruction efforts. Some are angry and feel let down. Others are positive about the future. These are their stories.
September 20th, around 5:30 in the afternoon, we decided to go out. There were still tropical storm winds, and the silence was deafening. But it was only broken by the sobs and screams of people realizing that their lives were now under rubble.
Carmen Julín Cruz has been the mayor of San Juan since 2012. As the hurricane approached, she set up shelters in the capital. When the storm hit, she was in the control room inside the biggest one, along with nearly 700 residents. The building swayed in the 250 km/h winds. Outside, the island was becoming engulfed with water.
It hits you. It hits you when you continue to go outside and you're up to here, to your hip with water with human excrement.
The US government's emergency agency FEMA led the relief effort. But an internal report done by FEMA itself found that all the supplies meant for Puerto Rico had been rerouted to the US Virgin Islands instead.
When we move into response mode, it's all about getting, food, water, shelter to the people. And at that point in time, and opening up the roads and reestablishing the ports, those kinds of things, we had about 19,000 federal employees, soldiers, sailors, Marines, and civilians that were working this disaster. We had the largest air mission in FEMA's history. We had, at one point in time, I had 87 helicopters flying multiple missions each day to get food and water out into the mountains. The power restoration, dramatic, scenes of people dangling from helicopters in order to install the cables. Those unique things about this made this, combined with any supply that we needed to travel 1,000, 1,100 miles to get here. Those factors, which is so easy to forget as you get into a more comfortable recovery, were really unique and challenging, but we met every challenge.
FEMA was telling us to go on our phones and register to get help. We had no phones. We had no communication.
Cell phone masts were destroyed by the storm, and FEMA didn't have enough working satellite phones to communicate with the United States and coordinate the delivery of more supplies.
When Irma came around, we shipped everything to the island. So when Maria came around, within 2 weeks, our warehouse was pretty much empty.
Not only were they lying about having help on the ground, but help wasn't coming. They started using these excuses like we are This is a quote from the President of the United States. We are an island surrounded by water, lots and lots of water, ocean water, no kidding. As if we didn't know that before.
Basically, there was no light, no electricity, and no water. Those who needed dialysis were dying. Other health problems that emerged at the time were getting more complicated. People who had asthma, diabetes, high blood pressure.
You can kill people with a gun, or you can kill them with neglect. Ours were deaths of neglect. And how can somebody feel satisfied with that? The answer to that will escape me the rest of my life. We got an SOS from a hospital. And they didn't have a generator. They asked FEMA for a generator, and FEMA kept saying they didn't get their request. So they asked again, and they didn't get their request. Their generator gave out. When we got there, 2 other people on intensive care had died because their generator had shut down, and they didn't have batteries with enough length to keep them on their life support system. But as I looked to the right, there were people in a building. It was a home for elderly people, and they were waving their hands outside, and they were putting white towels, which we all know it's the international sign for help. We pulled 21 people from that building, severely dehydrated, people that were bedridden, and that day we continued to do that all day, all night, taking people out of homes that haven't had dialysis. And you know, all I could say is I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. And I'll never forget the glazed looks, the zombie-like existence. It's wondering how the ones we couldn't help that died felt. And I asked God to let them know that we didn't get there because we couldn't, not because we wouldn't, not because we didn't want.
Due to the lack of organization in the health sector, the number of casualties continued to rise.
It was initially reported that 16 people were killed. It's now believed that nearly 3,000 people died as a result of the hurricane. The Trump administration disputes the figure.
2,431 applications were sent to FEMA for funeral assistance. So that means that 2,431 people, I mean, you know, this is what upsets me. Damn it, FEMA knew. If you get 2,431 applications for burial help, that means that 2,431 people died. For heaven's sake, you know how many of those they approved? 75. Literally. I'm not talking about 75%, 75.
Thousands of people also need FEMA's help to rebuild their homes.
Buenos días, FEMA. No answer.
How do you explain some of those cases that after a year was still not addressed?
If someone didn't get the assistance that they felt that they needed, please give us another shot. Call us again. Contact us again. I still have 40 centers open across the island. We still have a 1-800 hotline. We still have online questions again. Give us another chance. Let us try to help you in the way that we can.
The US government has allocated $18.5 billion to Puerto Rico's reconstruction, the biggest relief budget for a single disaster in American history. But critics say double that amount is needed.
We got to make sure that this opportunity, this unique, one of a time, probably once in a lifetime opportunity of funding, so that we can build it right, that we do it the right way, and we're really going to take it seriously. And the other thing to keep in mind is this federal investment that's coming here is going to create jobs, okay? We're going to be bringing over the next year, 2 years, next 5, 10 years, there's going to be lots and lots of jobs, in particular in construction areas.
I went back to school. Not all my students came back. There was some kind of delay due to the fact that there were no communications. Many of them lacked power. And the saddest part, many of them lacked a safe home. They lost their roof, for example.
Once a teacher, Amarilis Rodriguez quit her job when she found that many of her students were homeless due to the hurricane damage. She set up an NGO called Toldos Pa Mi Gente, which translates to Tarps for My People. They collect donations and train local people in construction skills.
I spoke to my neighbors, and we began this group of, in order to help with the relief. At the beginning, we just asked for tarps on Facebook, and people from around the world began sending tarps. We received tarps from Australia, from Spain, from Mexico, from all around the United States. Suddenly, we had so many tarps that we had to get organized in a more formal way. We just got organized and began searching for homes without a roof around our neighborhood. And we began meeting people, and people wanted to help. So from a bunch of 20 people that met that first time, suddenly we had 80 volunteers willing to help. Basically, our cases are people who were either denied by the FEMA aid due to lack of documents, or FEMA gave them just a little ridiculous amount of money to fix a huge damage. If you come in a plane, as you're landing, you may see the amount of blue roofs everywhere. And small groups like ours, we try to help, but this is a big elephant. We eat the elephant one bite at a time. It's hard. Honestly, I wonder if in Florida, if in Louisiana, if in Texas, these places that have been hit by other terrible hurricanes, if a year after they are living in these conditions that we're living now. I don't think so.
The US president was criticized for not visiting Puerto Rico immediately after the hurricane. It was 2 weeks before he arrived on the island.
Now, I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack, because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine. We've saved a lot of lives. If you look at every death is a horror, but if you look at a real catastrophe like Katrina, and you look at the tremendous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that died, and you look at what happened here with really a storm that was just totally overpowering. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. And what is your death count as of this moment? 17?
16 certified.
16 people certified.
And I remember people that love me very much told me, don't take on that man, meaning the president. He will ruin your political career. And I said, if I don't say what I have to say, it will ruin my life. I won't be able to live with myself. People are going to die, and we don't deserve this.
The mayor of San Juan has become the most vocal official condemning the president's response. Donald Trump has called her incompetent.
Being bashed by this president is honestly not an insult. It's a badge of honor because it shows that he knows that I'm nothing like him.
Javier Benitez works at a university in San Juan. He lost his previous job after the hurricane hit and has been trying to get his life back to normal.
My job at the time had to do with social media, the use of the internet, and dealing with students online. And basically, I couldn't do any of those anymore. There was no light, no water, no internet, and no phones. With that situation, they closed my department and left me unemployed.
Some Puerto Ricans were evacuated following Maria. Many of them are still living in temporary housing in the United States. But the majority chose to stay and try and rebuild their lives at home on the island.
After the hurricane, I thought about moving to the United States because our relations with the U.S. makes it so easy. I had a good support system here in Puerto Rico, and that's why I decided to stay. But many other friends of mine were not so lucky, and they were forced to leave.
Puerto Rico is a unique world of dichotomies, a Latin American nation with U.S. citizenship and integrated into the U.S. economy. While its political status has been challenged by parties that support either full statehood or independence from the U.S.
Historically, our people have been very fond of the United States and the American culture, and I have felt part of that culture. However, political issues are not really a matter of interest on the island. So if there's one thing positive about Hurricane Maria, it's the fact that for the average Puerto Rican, it brought awareness regarding the true nature of the relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States. We don't have the right to vote for the president while we reside here in Puerto Rico. Many Puerto Ricans are curious about having the power to elect the president and having full representation at Congress. But we only have those rights if we live in the mainland of the United States.
Even before Hurricane Maria hit, Puerto Rico had big problems. The island has a soaring financial debt of $74 billion. The poverty rate is 45% and nearly 25% of young people are unemployed.
Puerto Rico's economy was growing until the early 1990s. But because Congress repealed the tax provisions that were sustaining Puerto Rico's economy, tax incentives that were aimed at manufacturing, at attracting industry to Puerto Rico, those incentives were eliminated by Congress in 1996. The truth is that the American public in general, the public in the U.S., have been very sympathetic towards Puerto Rico, and the reactions, especially from many members of Congress, from many public figures, on media, the NGOs, have been very positive. You can see all the time how so many communities have been joining efforts from the U.S. mainland to provide aid to Puerto Rico.
The hurricane has not only highlighted the island's financial problems, it sparked a debate about how to solve them.
Being a colony continues to provide an excuse and a structure upon which neglect and blame can continue to be placed on the Puerto Rican people. We have to audit the debt. We look at our bank statements every month, and if we see something that we don't remember, we call the bank. Well, nobody has audited the debt.
I think people are now more aware that we must face the challenges as a people on our own. We are aware also that federal aid will be there, might be there, but do not rely on that. Do not depend on that.
Es un problema evidente.
For us, the most obvious problem is the economic situation and lack of employment. For many, it's much easier to just move to the U.S. In my case, I didn't have to do it. But I know that for many other young professionals, the situation is not the same.
There are many different views here of what being Puerto Rican means. The relationship with the United States has been a long-standing debate, and after the hurricane, the issue seems to be at the forefront of people's minds.
Regarding the unique status of Puerto Rico, obviously, this is a little island. While it's U.S. territory, it has limited rights in terms of voting, less representation at the Congress. How does that special status impact your ability to work or the ability of FEMA to respond to such a crisis?
There's no difference. These are American citizens. I've been tasked by the President of the United States to help American citizens and to do everything I can to help them recover. They're my people, and I'm proud to be here.
I feel, well, this is very personal, I feel we've been treated as second-class citizens, although our young people are in the armed forces, although the U.S. companies do not pay taxes here, or they have these benefits of very low taxes, No, I don't think we're being treated as Americans. I don't think people feel very American now.
The worst natural disaster on U.S. soil in a century. It has killed thousands and wrecked the lives of thousands of the survivors. The reconstruction work will take many more months. The political repercussions are likely to last a good deal longer.
The U.S. has not let Puerto Rico down. Donald Trump and his administration have let Puerto Rico down. The American people have soared where he crashed. The Latino and the diaspora, Puerto Rican diaspora, have opened their hearts when he showed he had no heart.
I really believe that it will take time, but the island has so much potential. It is hard to change the emotions, but I think the facts are in our favor, in the favor of people that still believe in Puerto Rico.